And welcome back to our continued coverage at CTIA 2014. We're joined by David Walsh. He's the chairman and CEO of GenBand. And David, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us.
It's amazing how companies like yours that have been around for a little bit of time have changed so much. You guys have a lot more, I guess, a bigger presence out in Silicon Valley right now. Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. Well, you know, this industry is about innovation. Things are moving, as we all know, incredibly fast. And the leader in innovation is Silicon Valley. So if you want to be part of what's really happening, that's where you need to have some really smart people. And we're not about being a fast follower. We're not about trying to build something after somebody else did, make it a little more efficient. We really want to be out and build something ahead of the market. And we want to be known as the group that's actually leading those efforts. And not in everything, but in real-time communications, we want to be the market leader. And we feel that it's essential to have a presence out there. It's also where, you know, it's not just the people that you have working, but it's where the ecosystem is. It's where the partners, the customers, you know, there's a lot of innovation that's required outside your company to really make things happen. So, you know, you got to be where the action is.
David, you come to a show like CTIA and similar shows, and you see a lot of products and a lot of launches and new innovations, but it seems like now there's a bit of a different perspective on a booth that you may walk by at a show like CTIA, where you want to find out what services that product enables, but not so much about the product itself. Why is that?
Well, there's a change. The internet players got into the communications space, and they proved to the market that they can come up with innovation much quicker than the traditional players. And so what's happening now is the carriers are being forced to have to respond faster. And you know, there's different people involved now. You have people in the marketing organizations of these large carriers who see pressure coming from competitors that they never thought about before, and they have to respond. And they can't wait, and you know, through the traditional time it takes to go through a launch of a product in the old model. So they're now out looking for solutions quickly, and that's why you see so much traction around things like virtualization and cloud, because those technologies actually enable service to happen faster. So there's different dynamics that are actually playing out now. You know, the carriers aren't just competing against each other, they're competing against this whole new set of players that are out there in the market who don't have the legacy to worry about. They're just out innovating. That's all they're focused on. They're focused on the customer, they're focused on innovation, not building infrastructure necessarily.
David, you have a portfolio of mobile capabilities that you're launching here at CTIA called Simply Mobile. Tell me briefly about what Simply Mobile is, but more so tell me about the services that it enables.
Well, let me tell you how we got there. You know, the sort of legacy of GenBand, a big part of it was the Nortel switching business, which was primarily a fixed business. And when we got in there, that gave us a huge presence across the globe, a huge infrastructure to make things happen. But we weren't positioned where a lot of growth activity was, which was in this mobile space. So we took a step back and said, okay, where do we want to play? Now, we don't want to be in the hard infrastructure, the hardware space, right? There's big players and like great companies like Ericsson and you know, ALU and Huawei and others in that space. We wanted to look and say, okay, where is their pain points and where can we compete? And being a real-time communications provider, layer 5 and above, what can we do for wireless carriers? And so a couple things came that we uncovered. One was we saw this exploding over-the-top market. So you saw Skype and Viber and WhatsApp, and we looked at that space and said, okay, the carriers are going to have to respond. They can't just sit here and allow these new entrants to start taking their subscribers away. And we see how valuable those companies have now become. At WhatsApp, you see the numbers that are being placed and the value of these businesses. So what we, in our game plan, isn't to compete with the carriers like they are. It's to enable them to succeed in the future. So we went out and looked at all the over-the-top infrastructures out there. We looked at Skype and WhatsApp and Viber and all the ones. There was only a few that were really large, that had the ability to scale, that had real proven technology, and one of them was free. They, in our opinion, had demonstrated the ability to scale, and they had an incredibly efficient infrastructure with a lot of feature functionality built in. So for real-time communication, not just voice like Viber, or not just picture sharing and SMS like WhatsApp. They had voice, picture sharing, they had SMS, they had all the functionality that you could see in WebEx and GoToMeeting, all of that capability. So what we saw was we can go out and we can now offer that as a platform for the carriers to get into the over-the-top space. So we're an over-the-top fighter. And the carriers can actually, because they're in-band, they have the handset, they control the signaling, they can offer superior service than the over-the-tops. So what we're doing, as one example in Simply Mobile, is making it easy, simple. We in a matter of weeks, we can launch a service for a carrier to put them right in the space to compete and take back those customers. So that's one example. That was one opportunity. Another opportunity that we saw was that there's a massive increase in the capacity on these networks. That these networks, as soon as they put more spectrum out there, it's used. We saw the massive investment in 4G, but we didn't see the increase in ARPU. So these carriers are struggling with this CapEx issue, or every time they turn around, they've got to invest more in the network just to keep the subs at the current value. So there has to be a new model to deliver this added capacity that's required in the network. And what we feel is that there's a need to federate. The infrastructure's out there. It just needs to be federated. There's lots of small cells. There's femto cells. There's pico cells. There's small cells. There's Wi-Fi. All of that infrastructure is out there that needs to be federated. And if that infrastructure can get federated, then the carriers don't have to continue to buy more and more spectrum and put out more and more base stations. But once you open that up, then you have issues. The networks are secure today because the handset knows who the handset and the user is, and is connected to a particular carrier. But now when you start coming through anyone's infrastructure, you need to deal with things like security. So security became the stumbling block to getting that federation to happen. And that's the product, our security gateway, that we developed to allow that to happen. So that was another capability that we feel that these carriers can use. It's a very low-cost way of extending their reach, extending their capacity, and so that's a pretty exciting area. And this is, once again, rate focused at where the pain is. Another thing that we're seeing is messaging. That there's just, the messaging traffic is just growing. It's just a cultural thing. People prefer to, they feel very comfortable with all forms of different types of messaging. But to launch these products, carriers need to be responsive. They got to be able to do it now, because they're seeing these new internet players come in with these cool messaging products and start to nip away at their infrastructure. So all of that messaging capability, all of that unified communications, all of that real-time communications we have in our cloud infrastructure. And what that really, at the top of that, wrapped around that, is what we call Candy. And Candy is...
that's your platform as a service.
That's our platform as a service. So imagine that we have accumulated this massive amount of science over the last 10 years. We've been investing $120 to $130 million a year only on real-time communications. And so we took all of that science that allows for picture sharing, allows for video calling, allows for voice calling, SMS, all of that capability, and we put a wrapper around that, a service layer around that, an orchestration layer, so people can come in and they can take whatever they want from a real-time communication. They don't need to have an application anymore. They already have one. Most enterprises, look at any of these, whether it's financial services, healthcare, look at companies like SAP and Oracle, they all have anchor applications. What they're looking to do is build real-time communications into them. Not have to buy a new application, but to embed it in a contextual way, to use real-time communications the way it's intended to be used in a normal course of business. So Candy allows any carrier to come in and embed real-time communications in any of their enterprise applications.
Can you give me an example, David, of what you just, I know you talked about messaging. and another example as well, but give me an example of how cloud would enable a service for an enterprise.
So let's say you have somebody that has a Salesforce automation tool for salespeople. You know, contact list, contract tracking, commissions, all of that stuff that almost every salesperson has one form of that or another. Today, what these salespeople do is they're in that application all day long, farming their business, working with their customers, tracking their sales and their funnel and their backlog. But when they get around to to communicate, what do? They set up go-to-meetings. They set up WebExes. They leave their application to make phone calls. They leave their application to make SMSs. Why would they do that? Wouldn't it be much better if I'm a salesperson and I'm using my sales tool to receive the call in the application I'm using so that it gets tracked, it's accountable, I can go back and reset that call up, it's contextual in the activity that I'm working on, all of my real-time communications are then logged and put together so I can see the activity in the account if I've got to actually go back and kind of recollect reconstruct things. So there's an example of how real-time communications. Let's talk about financial services. If you're a trader, is there any reason if you're using a Reuters application or a Bloomberg application or a Thomson application, why would you need to leave that application while you're studying the market to go reach for your cell phone to make a phone call or make a text or to pick up your landline to make a phone call? Why would you need to do that? Or to do a WebEx to bring in 3 or 4 analysts to talk to them? You're going to launch that right in the application. All of that can be done in a matter of clicks now. Candy allows anyone to come in and to be able to real-time enable their application on the fly. So here's another thing, back to school. A lot of people are out, e-commerce sites are launching all kinds of promotions. But they need to scale up to be able to do that. They need a back end, they need a fulfillment, they need customer service people for this activity. They need a call center for this activity. But they don't want to go and buy a call center because this is just a special they're going to run for a week. Candy allows people to come in and set up a call center on the fly and then turn it down when you don't need it. And so the concept is not only that you can get to these real-time tools and you can embed them in your application, but you only pay for what you use. And that's that whole rationalizing the supply chain. In the old Gen Band, what did we do with the carriers? We would sell them our software, and we honestly didn't know exactly how it was being used. The feedback loop wasn't so clear because we didn't talk to the customer. We talked to the carrier. But now, in a cloud world, as soon as a customer gets on the cloud, you know exactly why they're using the service, what works, what doesn't work. That's why you can innovate so much faster in this cloud world.
You think you have a handle on grasping what the consumer market demands and what they need? You said yourself you were working on the other side of the fence for such a long time.
I tell you, it's just changed because it's very difficult when you're not talking to the customer to really understand their needs and understand the value of each need, which is even more important. You can see the needs, but then how valuable is that need and how much should be investing? Once you go into the cloud, you see real time why people are using what they're using, how frequently, how important it is, and it tells you where to start investing your R&D. And what we can do then is transfer those efficiencies back to our customers, which are the carriers. That they ultimately benefit from that. So it's faster to the market because you can identify what's truly needed as opposed to what's nice to have. So we don't have to be soothsayers or visionaries necessarily. We just got to watch the crowd. But we now have a way of watching the crowd because we're connected to them. And that's what our 50 million users allows us to do. We're getting feedback all day long as to what they're doing and why.
Seems to me that WebRTC and all real-time communications technologies are real game changers.
Absolutely. I mean, real-time communications now can be enabled in anything, any application. It can be embedded in the browser. So, we can deliver real-time communications in several ways. You can have it in an application. You can have it in the browser. You can embed it in your application. These barriers now have brought down and changed the market. So what we want to do is get out there, get the word out there that this real-time communications can add substantial value to any workflow, right? So, you know, think of all the things that you do today in your normal business life. Think about that being embedded in the tools you already use, rather than thinking of real-time communications as a separate tool in of itself. It's embedded. So that's what Candy is. It's new. What we find is if we go to the carriers and we do a PowerPoint presentation, we get one sort of response. If we go to our customers and we show them real examples, okay, we're going to spin up a call center on the fly. We're going to embed video in this application. We're going to set up these things. Then all of a sudden, the conversation gets much more interesting. Because what these carriers want to do is they want to live deeper in the wallet of their customers. They want to have a more meaningful relationship. They don't want to be disintermediated. They want to be in the value chain. And we have a platform that allows that to happen quickly.
Well, it's interesting, David. It seems like a very progressive move for you guys as a company and as a marketing team. It's noticeable in your marketing collateral that I've seen so far. So it's definitely an eye catcher. And thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.